just swirl. All right, I think it works. Hi, everybody. Hopefully you guys can see me. I'm so sorry for being about 10 minutes behind. As many of you may have had the same difficulties working from home, working remotely, internet and technical issues. So supposed to be me and another associate, Stella King. My name is Samantha Lyons. I am an attorney at Ania Scanlon and Surignano. Unfortunately, Stella was unable to get on due to the Zoom issue we were having. So you're just going to be with me today. We're here. We're going to discuss how telehealth is allowing for home care Medicaid to continue in this COVID-19 chaos that we have going on. Because what's important for our clients and everyone, in the community who may need help during this time is continuing for them to receive that help. For COVID-19 to not be an obstacle for those who may need assistance at home to not be able to get that assistance. So what I figured we would do is kind of take a step back and go through home care Medicaid briefly and let you know kind of the background of how pre-COVID-19 we got services in place. And then we're going to go through how that has changed so we can still get our clients and those who need home care the care that they need. So Medicaid home care is a financial means tested program. So what that means is an application is going to go in to your local Department of Social Services. So if you live in Westchester County, your application is going to go to the Westchester County Department of Social Services. You have to demonstrate to your local department that you are financially eligible, that for now, 2020, your non-retirement liquid assets are below $15,750. You submit your paperwork. You may have follow-up requests from your caseworker. Once you are financially approved, you're going to get a 25 to 30 page packet in the mail to say you have been approved for community Medicaid, and there may be something called a surplus, which we're going to discuss a little bit later. The biggest misconception with our clients and those who apply for Medicaid is they got this approval, they complied with all of the document requests. It can be a little bit burdensome, it can be a little exhausting and frustrating to get those documents in. But once you've completed that step, you get this packet, your care doesn't automatically just commence, unfortunately. There's a few steps that you need to take and 2 evaluations that you have to complete in order for your care to start. So the first evaluation is called the conflict-free eligibility assessment. This is done by New York State. So this is either a nurse, a social worker, someone is going to be generally coming to the home. So pre-COVID-19, this person, that nurse or social worker, was coming to your house. They were meeting you. They were going through, what exactly it was you needed assistance with in the community. They basically are going to give you what they call the green light or the red light to get your care. Now, the reason they do this is, unfortunately, there was a few bad apples who were taking advantage of the Medicaid program. So maybe it was about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, adult day centers were enrolling people off the street who may not have needed assistance with what they call the activities of daily living. So this could be toileting, grooming, assistance in eating, showering, dressing, pretty much a day in the life of somebody. If they need assistance with one of those activities, the home care Medicaid program can help them. So the seniors who are going to these day centers may not have needed this assistance. They may have been found to have been playing ping pong in the day centers. So the day centers that were enrolling each one of these participants was getting a flat fee for every person that they took in. So New York basically said, no, we cannot have this continue. In order for our Medicaid program to operate, we need to actually have a person, eyeball, come see you and make sure you are a person in need of these services. So step number 1, first hurdle, once we get that 25-page approval packet, is this conflict-free eligibility assessment. Generally, it takes about an hour and a half to 3 hours because, again, we're going to go through a day in the life of a person. We're going to go through every detail and prep our client in terms of how to phrase what it is that they may need assistance with. So once you get your approval, so you get the green light, unfortunately, care doesn't start now. We have a second hurdle. So you get the green light. You generally are going to get this approval within 24 hours of the scheduled assessment. The approval is going to be good for about 75 days. So from you getting the approval to the 75-day deadline, you need to schedule what's called a managed long-term care evaluation. So we call those MLTC evaluations. A lot of acronyms are involved in the home care Medicaid process. So CFE was that initial conflict-free eligibility assessment. MLTC is now this second, the managed long-term care evaluation. So an MLTC is what they call a fiscal intermediary. So they are essentially the insurance broker that Medicaid is going to pay to then sub out a licensed home care agency to provide the care. So the MLTC, again, managed long-term care evaluation, is probably the most important evaluation that someone who's getting care at home is going to go through. This evaluation is, again, going to be almost a repeat of that initial conflict-free eligibility assessment. It's going to go through, again, a day in your life. From when you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed, do you need someone to assist you in taking off your pajamas and getting into your clothes for the day? Can you do the buttons or the zipper by yourself? Do you need help brushing your hair? Do you have gait issues where you may need a walker, you may need a cane, or you may be wheelchair bound? Really, again, when we go over this with clients and we help prep and advocate for them, there is no detail that we want to miss out on. When they go to the bathroom, can they squeeze the toothpaste on their toothbrush and brush their own teeth? Males, can they shave their face, or do they need someone else to assist them? So we go through that with a client and we prep them. And then the evaluator from a managed long-term care agency, again, pre-COVID-19, would come to the house. They would, if you were in potentially rehab, either due to a fall or an injury, they could come visit you in the rehab, and then they would make a second visit to come see your house, make sure you are in a safe environment. If there's any changes that need to be made, so when you're discharged, you're coming home to a safe environment, they would discuss that with you and the family. In each county, there are certain managed long-term care MLTC providers. So let's just, again, defer back to Westchester. Westchester has about 12 to 15 MLTCs. So when we're working with a client, we recommend they call and schedule at least with 2 different MLTCs. These are supposed to be uniform assessments, but it's subjective. So someone's coming to your house and going through your day in the life. They may have a different view on how much assistance you need than I would. So it's very important to have 2 different perspectives come in, because this MLTC evaluation is determining your plan of care. So anywhere from 4 hours to a 24/7 live-in, they're going to do their evaluation. Again, this one may be a little bit shorter than the conflict-free. It's generally about 1 to 2 hours. Again, depending on how much care you need, there may be more detail, there may be more explanation to go through. We always want a family member to be present. Pre-COVID, we wanted someone in the home, someone to be there to advocate, to speak up, to give really the hard truth of what a person may need assistance with. It's not easy for any of us to say that we need assistance. None of us are going to harp on the details in our life that we may need the greatest need of assistance for. So we want that honest, intimate person who not only knows what goes on in a day-to-day and at night, but is also going to speak up. So again, once we go through what occurs, we're going to discuss how now during COVID, how the MLTCs and the CFEs are still occurring and how clients can still, people in the community, get the care that they need. So once you have this MLTC evaluation, Generally, once the evaluation ends, before the evaluator leaves the home, they're going to tell you, I can offer you with our plan 12 hours. You then, as either the representative, maybe you're the agent under the power of attorney or a healthcare proxy, or the person who is on Medicaid being evaluated, are going to decide, is this the plan of care that I am looking for? Is this satisfactory to what my needs are at home? If they are not, there's a few options. You can appeal, or as recommended, you can evaluate with a separate managed long-term care agency. If you were looking for 12 hours is what's going to protect your safety and best interest, you then enroll with the plan. There's now certain deadlines with each plan that you need to meet. Generally, the plan needs to be, the paperwork needs to be completed and submitted by the 20th of the month. So it's April 22nd. If I were to be evaluated by a managed long-term care provider today, and I was happy and I signed the paperwork, my care is unfortunately not going to start until June 1st. So there are certain exceptions that we're going to briefly touch on in a little bit, because again, now with COVID, we have a little bit more of an emergent situation, a more immediate need for someone who may be being discharged from a hospital. My apologies, some baby stuff is falling over in the background. So they're either being discharged from a rehab or potentially from a hospital, and they don't have the 6 weeks to wait for the care to commence. So there are certain ways that we can assist and advise for a person to get their care in place without these deadlines. But generally, you need to enroll by the 20th of the month for care to start the following 1st of the month. So briefly, one more thing that I just want to touch on before we get into the telehealth is most people who are on community Medicaid have what's called a surplus or a spend down. So it's important for us to discuss this as well with the whole COVID-19 situation, because what we recommend is enrolling in what's called a pooled trust. So if I'm applying for home care Medicaid and my income is Social Security and a pension. Combined, let's say I have $2,000 a month. Medicaid takes the position that I cannot have more than $895 a month. If I make more than $895, so in my example of $2,000, I have a surplus. If you do not enroll in what's called a pooled community trust, you must pay that surplus to Medicaid. So for the majority of our clients, Social Security and pension is what is most important for them on their day-to-day to pay any and all of their bills to maintain their aging in place and in the community. We don't recommend and we don't want them to lose this surplus to Medicaid. So enrolling in a pooled trust allows us to have the client or the Medicaid recipient take their surplus. So in my example, let's call it $1,100, and they transfer it to this pooled trust to be protected. So the pooled trust now is going to have your $1,100 and is going to pay any and all bills on behalf for the sole benefit of the Medicaid recipient. Therefore, we're protecting the income and we're allowing the person to now not only have care at home, but to age in place. So let's now kind of transition into COVID-19 and how all of these agencies are really doing their best to continue to facilitate care, not only for our clients, for any and all Medicaid recipients in the community. So telehealth, many of you may be familiar because not only is it happening in the Medicaid program, but a lot of our own doctors are doing telehealth. So I know urgent cares now, if you don't have an emergent issue where you don't need to go to the ER or immediately to your urgent care, you can schedule time to kind of have this face-to-face via the internet with your provider. So Medicaid has, jumped on this to make sure that the people who are on community Medicaid can still continue to get their care. So I've actually dealt with a few clients who have gone through this now with COVID-19 going on, and it seems to be operating very well. The phone numbers and the way of facilitating scheduling is remaining the same. So you get your financial approval, you get that packet. You're going to call the same number for what they call New York Medicaid choice to schedule. But now, instead of them, potentially putting you out maybe 7 to 10 days to get someone to come into the house, everything is being done remotely. Obviously, we can't have nurses and social workers coming in and out of houses if it's not absolutely necessary. We want to limit the exposure to our vulnerable population as much as we can. So a lot of the evaluations are being done via cell phone. Generally, it'll start off as audio. So they're going to go through the day in the life questions with you via the phone. So it's important now, maybe if you can't have that family member be physically present in the house, you want to make sure there's the capability to get them at least on the speakerphone. We still want somebody there who's going to be able to advocate for the person needing the care. So you schedule the evaluation. They generally are going to give you a window of time where the nurse or social worker is going to call the number that is provided. If there is substantial care that is needed, and there are substantial issues and assistance needed for the person to be walking or need assistance with walking, my understanding is a lot of times they're now going to FaceTime. So if you have an iPhone or an Android, via Skype, via Zoom, via FaceTime, now this evaluator is going to be able to eyeball and see the person, not only to confirm in the initial conflict free that they are in need of the services, but during the managed long-term care evaluation, they're able to see, okay, you've advised that you need a walker to get in and out of bed. So then during the FaceTime, if there's a person who can hold the phone, they're going to take those 5 steps to show the evaluator now remotely exactly as they would have done if the person was in the home. So it's fantastic that we now are not, we're having all of this chaos with COVID-19, everyone kind of trying to figure out this new normal during this period of us all being home to have the most limited interruption to our most vulnerable population, right? The people who need home care Medicaid, they are the ones who are either being discharged from a hospital or from a nursing home. They're healing. They may have had a respiratory issue or may be at high risk for obtaining one. So we need to make sure that they're being protected and limiting the exposure. So telehealth and telemed has really been the answer from the Medicaid program to make sure that we can get the care in place. And the great thing, because we're not working on scheduling deadlines for someone to actually come to a house, is they seem to be happening much quicker. So when somebody calls and they're scheduling that initial conflict free, it's generally being scheduled within 24 to 48 hours, which is great. So the next concern that we have and that we discuss with our clients is you have been financially approved. You've now had your 2 evaluations. So you may have picked your managed long-term care provider because you were happy with the plan of care that they offered. The biggest concern now is, okay, so now I'm going to have a home care aide coming to my home. Either, it could be for your mom or your dad, or you could be arranging for your own care. How do I limit the exposure? Because I now have a home care attendant who is traveling every day back and forth, if it's not a live-in, into my house. So not only protecting the home care aide, but also protecting the senior or the person in need of home care Medicaid who may be in that more vulnerable population. So an answer to that is something that's called the Consumer Directed Program. And a lot of the home care agencies we work with have been fantastic and really have been jumping on board to try and facilitate enrolling people in this Consumer Directed. So how Consumer Directed works is, we briefly touch base on when you enroll with the managed long-term care provider. So that fiscal intermediary, they are going to then sub out a licensed home care agency to provide your care. If maybe you want to put a suspension to that licensed home care agency because you're nervous about having new people coming in and out of your house during the COVID-19 process, you can tell the managed long-term care provider you want to do Consumer Directed. Consumer directed is the consumer, so you as the Medicaid recipient, taking on the responsibility to hire, train, and fire your own aides. So, where this is very beneficial is when we have someone on Medicaid who may have a family member who already may live with them, such as a child, or is willing to now come in and essentially quarantine with their family member, and they're now going to be paid by Medicaid to be the home care attendant. So, unfortunately, we can't have a spouse do this. And we can't have the agent who's acting under a power of attorney be paid. But a child who, in this situation, a lot of children are currently with their mom and or dad caring for them at this time, they can be paid by Medicaid if they enroll in consumer directed. So it's an application packet where you're almost an independent contractor of one of these licensed home care agencies. So Medicaid is going to pay you to be the home care aide, whether you decide to continue that once COVID-19 kind of simmers and we resume back to some of the normalcy that we had in the home care Medicaid world prior, is up to the family. Some people, pre-COVID-19 chose consumer directed because a child may have left their job to care for mom or dad. And, that's what they want to continue to do. But because they have their own families and their own bills, financially, it makes sense to allow them to be paid. So again, that's something that we've seen being utilized during COVID-19 to limit exposure. So if you're just getting started in the home care Medicaid program, you didn't already have aides in place, you may be nervous about now introducing new people to your home, especially if you've already been quarantining yourself. So that's definitely an option for people to be aware about and that we discuss. Consumer directed is also very beneficial anytime a person has what they call a skilled need. So home care attendants, as I was reviewing, assist you with your activities of daily living. If you need injections or if you have a feeding tube or a colostomy bag, Medicaid is not going to pay for the home care attendant to assist with those needs. So the recommendation is to do consumer directed, to have, whether it be a family member or any other person other than the spouse or the agent under the power of attorney, be that home care attendant. We've had it where someone has had an aide in place that wasn't with an agency, but has been with the family for 10 years. Now they're going to be paid by Medicaid under consumer directed by sending an application packet to a licensed home care agency. So that's been really great for clients to keep continuity. Just trying to think of what else to kind of give you guys a clearer idea, but basically COVID-19 has really interrupted all of our lives. What has been fantastic with the Medicaid program is how they are trying their best to streamline services for those who need it. We don't have people coming home who now can't have evaluations because no one can come to their house. They're allowing this to still operate, and they're putting out their own guides, the Department of Health, as to the best way to utilize these services. Also, speaking with an elder law attorney or a geriatric care manager to kind of go over the best way to prep for all of these evaluations, to review the pooled trust, because unfortunately, that's not something that is always well known. A lot of people, unfortunately, will pay their surplus and are concerned, they're getting care covered by Medicaid, but if they're losing their income every month, how is this going to be beneficial? How can they age in place and stay home? Geriatric care managers have also been, fantastic during this COVID-19 time. They're also able to communicate and visit our clients remotely. So whether you have already been in touch with what they call a GCM, or whether you are a child who may live in another state and you're very concerned about mom or dad now being home, being isolated, and you want someone to check in on them, whether it be from an emotional, mental standpoint, or to bring them groceries. If they need to potentially go to assisted living or to a rehab, the geriatric care manager can do all of these assessments now remotely, again, via Zoom or FaceTime. So as frustrating as it was to be 10 minutes late to the meeting because of technology, technology is really a saving grace right now for the Medicaid program and to protect our vulnerable population. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave you guys just a little bit of insight into not only the Medicaid program, but also how it's continuing right now in COVID-19. So everybody stay safe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Ania Scanlon and Sirignano. Thank you.